The great hall was quiet. Thousands of aliens sat in rows that went up to the ceiling. Their eyes, some big and some small, some with many and some with few, all looked at one man standing in the middle of the room. Kang Dahan stood in heavy chains. His hands were locked behind his back. His face was covered in cuts and bruises. One of his eyes was swollen shut from the beatings. But he stood straight. He did not bend. He did not look down. The Galactic Council ruled over 200 star systems. 12 different alien species sat at the high table, looking down at the human like he was an insect. For 30 years, humans had fought against them. For 30 years, humans had refused to surrender. The aliens were tired of these small creatures from a small planet, who did not know when to quit. High Arbiter Vaughn rose from his seat. He was tall, almost 3 meters high. His skin was like glass, and you could see his organs moving inside him. He had 16 eyes arranged in a circle around his head. When he spoke, his voice filled the entire chamber. "The human called Kang Dawn has been found guilty," Vaughn announced. "He killed 47 Dominion soldiers during the battle at Colony Sigma 7. He destroyed 2 transport ships. He refused to give information about the human resistance, even after 7 days of questioning." Dahan remembered those 7 days. The pain, the needles, the machines that made his body feel like it was on fire. He had not spoken a single word. Not one. "The sentence," Vaughn continued, "is exile to Vark 9. A wave of whispers went through the chamber. Even the aliens who hated humans seemed shocked. Vark 9 was not just a prison. It was death itself shaped into a planet. The air on Vark 9 was poison. The sun sent radiation that could cook flesh. The water was acid. And the creatures that lived, they were monsters designed by some ancient civilization that loved to watch things die. No one had ever survived more than 40 days on Vark 9. Most died in the first week. This was not a punishment. This was an execution with extra steps. Vaughn looked pleased with himself. His 16 eyes all focused on Dawn, waiting to see fear, waiting to see the human beg. That was what aliens liked most about these sentences. The begging. But Dahan did not beg. Instead, he smiled. It was a small smile. Just a slight curve of his lips. But it was real. And when Vaughn saw it, something cold moved through his transparent body. "Thank you," Dahan said. His voice was calm and clear. He spoke perfect Dominion standard, the common language of the galaxy. "I was hoping you would choose somewhere interesting." The chamber went silent again. But this silence was different. This was confusion. This was the silence of creatures who did not understand what they were seeing. Vaughn leaned forward. "You understand what Vark 9 is, human? You understand that nothing survives there." Dahan looked up at the High Arbiter with his one good eye. "I understand that you believe that," he said. "That is enough for me." The guards took him away after that. They put him on a transport ship and flew him across the galaxy to a small, ugly planet that glowed red and orange from space. The clouds above Vark 9 were green with poison. Lightning struck the surface every few seconds. From orbit, it looked like the planet was angry at everything. They did not land. Landing would risk the ship and crew. Instead, they put Dahan in a metal pod with a basic survival kit. Some water, some food tablets, a knife, a thin emergency blanket. Enough to survive maybe 10 days if he was very careful and very lucky. The pod door opened, and wind screamed into the small space. The air smelled like burning metal and rotten eggs. Already, Dahan could feel his skin starting to itch from the toxic atmosphere. One of the alien guards laughed. "Good luck, human. I hope the beasts eat you slowly." Dahan did not answer. He grabbed his survival kit and jumped. He fell through green clouds and acid rain. His pod burned up around him, the heat shields barely holding. When he finally crashed into the surface of Varak 9, the impact knocked the air from his lungs. For a long moment, he just lay there in the dirt. His body hurt everywhere. The ground beneath him was hot, almost burning through his clothes. In the distance, he could hear something roaring, something big, something hungry. But Dohan did not panic. He did not cry. He did not pray. Instead, he laughed. It was a real laugh, full and deep. He laughed because the Dominion thought they were killing him. They thought they were throwing away a problem. They had no idea what they had actually done. For 3 years before his capture, Dohan had prepared for this moment. He had studied every death world the Dominion used for exile. He had memorized the plants, the animals, the weather patterns. He had trained his body to handle extreme conditions. And most importantly, he had injected himself with something special. Tiny machines, smaller than blood cells, now swam through his veins. They were called nanobots, created by the best human scientists in the Resistance. They would filter the poison from the air he breathed. They would help his body adapt to the radiation. They would make him stronger, faster, harder to kill. The Dominion thought Varak 9 was a death sentence. Dohan knew it was an opportunity. He stood up, brushed the dirt from his clothes, and looked around at his new home. The sky was the color of blood. The ground was cracked and dry. In every direction, he could see danger. He smiled again. "All right," he said to no one. "Let us begin." The first sunrise almost killed him. Dohan had found a small cave to sleep in during the night. The cave was hot and smelled bad, but it protected him from the acid rain that fell for hours. He thought he was safe. He was wrong. When the sun rose over the mountains, it sent waves of radiation across the land. Dohan felt it immediately. His skin started to burn. His eyes watered. His head felt like someone was hitting it with a hammer from the inside. He crawled deeper into the cave, pressing himself against the cool rock wall. The nanobots in his blood worked hard. He could feel them moving, fighting against the radiation, trying to protect his organs. For 6 hours, he lay there, shaking and sweating, wondering if this was the end. But it was not the end. By evening, his body had started to adapt. The nanobots learned from the radiation and built new defenses. When the second sunrise came, it still hurt, but less. By the fifth sunrise, Dohan could walk in daylight without falling down. The first lesson of Varak 9 was simple. Everything here wanted to kill him. The sun, the air, the water, the ground, the plants, the animals, everything. But everything could also be survived if he was smart and if he was patient. Dohan spent the first 20 days just learning. He watched the animals from hiding places. He tested the plants by touching them with sticks before touching them with his hands. He collected water from the acid rain by filtering it through layers of sand and his emergency blanket. The water still tasted terrible, but it did not kill him. He made a list in his head of things that were dangerous and things that were very dangerous. Some plants were poisonous, but his nanobots could handle the poison if he only ate small amounts. Other plants would kill him in seconds. He learned to tell the difference by their smell. The deadly ones smelled sweet, like honey. The survivable ones smelled like garbage. The animals were harder to understand. There were small creatures that looked like rats, but had 6 legs and teeth like needles. They were fast and mean, but they were afraid of fire. Dohan learned to keep a flame burning near him when he slept. There were flying things that looked like bats mixed with snakes. They hunted at night, using sound to find their prey. Dohan learned to stay very quiet and very still. When he heard their wings, and then there were the big ones, the Dominion called them Omega Beasts. They were the kings of Varak 9. Each one was as big as a house. They had 6 thick legs, armored skin that could stop bullets, and mouths full of teeth the size of swords. They were fast despite their size. They were smart despite being animals. And they were always hungry. Dohan saw his first Omega beast on the 10th day. He was collecting water from a small stream when the ground started to shake. He looked up and saw it coming through the dead forest, knocking down trees like they were made of paper. He ran. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. The beast chased him for almost an hour before it got bored and went to find easier food. That night, Dohan sat in a tiny hole in the ground, breathing hard, his heart beating so fast he thought it might break. But he did not give up. He did not despair. Instead, he thought the Omega beast was big and strong. But it was not impossible. Nothing was impossible. Everything had a weakness. He just had to find it. For the next 10 days, Dohan did not run from the beasts. He followed them. He watched them from safe distances. He learned their patterns. They slept during the hottest part of the day. They drank from the same water sources. They were territorial and fought each other for space. And most importantly, their armored skin had gaps at the joints where the legs met the body. On the 30th day, an Omega beast found Dohan again. This time, he did not run. He had spent 3 days building a trap. He had dug a deep pit and covered it with branches and leaves. He had sharpened bones from smaller animals into spikes and placed them at the bottom. He had woven vines into ropes and connected them to heavy rocks balanced on the edge of a cliff. The beast came toward him, its massive mouth open, ready to eat. Dohan stood his ground until the last second, then jumped to the side. The beast followed, stepping onto the covered pit. The ground collapsed, and the creature fell into the hole, impaling itself on the bone spikes, but it was not dead. These things were hard to kill. It roared and tried to climb out, its claws digging into the walls of the pit. Dohan cut the vine rope. The heavy rocks fell from the cliff and crashed onto the beast's head. Once, twice, 3 times. Finally, the Omega beast stopped moving. Dohan stood at the edge of the pit, looking down at the monster that had terrified him for weeks. He was covered in dirt and blood. His hands were shaking, but he was smiling. He climbed down into the pit and began his work. The beast's skull became his helmet. Its armored skin became his chestplate and shoulder guards. Its teeth became knives and spearheads. Its bones became tools. When he was finished, Dohan no longer looked like a man. He looked like a monster himself. A monster made from monsters. Far above, in the cold darkness of space, a Dominion satellite recorded everything. A small alien technician watched the video with wide eyes, then sent a message to High Arbiter Vaughn. The message was short. The human is still alive. He killed an Omega beast. He's wearing it. Vaughn read the message 3 times before he believed it. Then he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. 60 days had passed since Dohan fell from the sky. He was no longer the same man who had stood in chains before the Galactic Council. That man had been a prisoner. This man was something else. This man was a predator. He walked through the toxic swamps of Arc-9's southern region, his Omega beast armor heavy on his shoulders. The skull helmet covered his face, making him look like a demon from old Earth stories. Smaller creatures ran from him now. Even some of the bigger ones kept their distance. He had earned his place in the food chain. But on this day, Dohan was not hunting animals. He was following tracks. Strange tracks. Footprints in the mud that did not belong to any beast he knew. They were made by people. He followed the tracks for hours, moving carefully, staying quiet. Whoever made these tracks was trying to hide, walking through water to erase their trail, doubling back to confuse anyone following. But Dohan had become very good at tracking. The swamp could not keep its secrets from him. Near sunset, he found them. It was a camp hidden inside a cave behind a waterfall of acid. The waterfall was weak enough that a person could pass through without getting badly burned, but strong enough to keep most animals away. Clever. Very clever. Dahan counted 17 beings in the camp. They were from different species. Some had fur, some had scales, some had skin in colors he had never seen. They were thin and sick-looking. Their clothes were torn. Their eyes were empty. These were exiles. Like him, they had been dropped on Vark 9 to die. Unlike him, they had chosen to hide instead of fight. One of them spotted him first. A female with silver skin and large dark eyes. She screamed and grabbed a pointed stick, holding it in front of her with shaking hands. The others jumped up, some grabbing weapons, others backing away in terror. Dahan understood why they were afraid. He was wearing the skin of their nightmares. He looked like death walking. He raised his hand slowly and removed his helmet. His human face appeared, scarred and weathered, but clearly not a monster. "I am not here to hurt you," he said in Dominion Standard. The silver-skinned female did not lower her weapon. "What are you? How are you alive?" "I am human," Dahan said. "My name is Dahan, and I am alive because I refuse to die." A male stepped forward. He had the same silver skin as the female, so Dahan guessed they were related. Brother and sister, maybe. The male was taller but thinner, like he had not eaten enough for a long time. "We know about humans," the male said. His voice was rough and tired. "Your kind fights the Dominion. That is why they hate you so much." Dahan nodded. "What is your name?" "I am Siok. This is my sister, Yura. We are from the Velar system. The Dominion destroyed our world because we would not pay their taxes." His voice cracked with old anger. "They killed everyone. Everyone except those of us they found amusing enough to exile." Dahan looked at the others. Each face had a story. Each pair of eyes held pain. These were the forgotten people of the galaxy. The ones nobody cared about. The ones thrown away like garbage. "How long have you been here?" Dahan asked. 2 cycles, Yura answered. 2 cycles was almost 3 Earth years. "We survive, barely. We hide. We eat what we can find. We watch each other die, one by one." She lowered her weapon finally. "Why are you here, human? Why come to us?" Dahan sat down on a rock near the entrance of the cave. He looked at each of them slowly, letting them see his eyes, letting them see that he was serious. "I am here because I am building something," he said. "Not just survival. Something bigger. A community. A force. Maybe, one day, an army." Siok laughed, but there was no humor in it. "An army? Against what?" "The Dominion has already won. We are already dead. This planet is our grave. We are just waiting for the burial." "That is what the Dominion wants you to believe," Dahan said. "They want you broken. They want you hopeless. That way, you are not a threat. You just fade away, and they forget you ever existed." He stood up and walked to the center of their camp. With his finger, he drew in the dirt. He drew the shape of Vark 9. He marked the mountains, the swamps, the forests, the places where the worst predators lived. "I have spent 60 days studying this planet," he said. "Every creature here can be hunted. Every poison here can be survived. Every danger here can become a weapon." He pointed to a spot on his map, a mountain range near the equator. "There is a place here where we can build something permanent. A fortress. A home. The Dominion satellites cannot see it clearly. The predators avoid it because of the heat vents. It is perfect." You're a step closer to the map. Despite her fear, despite her exhaustion, something was waking up in her eyes. Something that looked like hope. "You think we can actually live here?" she asked. "Not just survive, but live?" Dahan met her gaze. "I think we can do more than live. I think we can become strong. Every time the Dominion drops an exile here, they think they are throwing away a problem. But they are actually giving us a gift. Every exile is a potential soldier. Every one of us has a reason to hate the Dominion. We are not fighters, Seok said. We are merchants, workers, farmers. We do not know how to make war. Then I will teach you, Dahon said simply. I will teach all of you. This planet is the most brutal teacher in the galaxy, and we have all been enrolled in its classes. Those who graduate from Varrock 9 will be unstoppable. The camp was quiet. 17 beings looked at this human, this strange creature from a small planet who had killed an Omega beast and wore its bones. He was offering them something they had lost long ago. Purpose. Why you are. A was the first to speak. I am with you, she said. She stood up straight, taller than before. I would rather die fighting than die hiding. Seok looked at his sister, then at Dawn. Finally, he nodded. If my sister goes, I go. One by one, the others stood. Not all of them. Some were too broken, too scared, too tired. But most of them stood. 12 beings from 7 different species, choosing to follow a human into the unknown. Dohun put his helmet back on. Through the eye holes of the Omega beast skull, he looked at his first followers. We are the people the galaxy forgot, he said. From this day forward, we are the forgotten, and we will make them remember. They left the swamp that night, walking toward the mountains, walking toward the future. Behind them, the acid waterfall continued to fall, washing away any trace that they had ever been there. 3 cycles passed. 3 cycles of building, training, and growing. The mountain fortress rose from the rock like a living thing. It had started as a few caves connected by rope bridges. Now it was a city. Stone walls surrounded the main compound. Guard towers watched every approach. Underground tunnels connected different sections, allowing quick movement without being seen from the sky. Dahan stood on the highest tower, looking down at what they had created. Behind him, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red and orange. Below him, over 200 beings moved through the fortress, each with a job, each with a purpose. They called this place Haven. It was the only safe place on Varrock 9, maybe the only safe place in the galaxy. For people like them, Yura walked up the stairs to join him. She had changed much in 3 cycles. She was no longer the scared female he had found in the swamp cave. Now she was his second in command. Her silver skin was marked with scars from battles and training. Her eyes were sharp and confident. The new arrivals are settling in, she reported. 23 this time. Most are in good condition. The Dominion must be getting careless about who they exile. Dohan nodded. The more they send, the stronger we become. They are building our army for us without even knowing it. Every few weeks, the Dominion dropped new exiles on Varrock 9. They never bothered to check the surface. Why would they? Nothing survived here. That was what they believed. Each time a pod fell from the sky, Dahan's scouts were there to meet it. They guided the confused and terrified newcomers to Haven. They gave them food, shelter, and most importantly, hope. Some newcomers could not adapt. The planet was too harsh, the training too difficult. Dahan did not force anyone to stay. Those who wanted to leave were given supplies and directions to other shelters across the planet. But most stayed. Most found something in Haven they had lost long ago. Family.Seok appeared at the base of the tower. He was leaner now, harder. 3 cycles of hunting the deadliest creatures in the galaxy had turned him into a warrior. He led the hunting parties that brought back food and materials. Under his training, even the weakest newcomers learned to survive in the wild. We have a visitor, Seok called up. Young male. Found him near the eastern ridge. Came down in a pod this morning. Doan and Yura climbed down to meet the newcomer. He was young, barely more than a boy. Human. His face was pale with fear, and his hands would not stop shaking. He wore the gray uniform of a Dominion labor camp, marked with a prisoner number on his chest. "What is your name?" Doan asked gently. "Taiho," the boy said. His voice cracked. "Park Taiho. I was conscripted into the Dominion's mining operation on asteroid K-17. When I tried to escape, they caught me. They said exile to a death world was kinder than what I deserved." Doan studied the boy. He saw himself in that face, young, angry, terrified, full of potential that the Dominion wanted to waste. "You are safe now, Taiho," Doan said. "No one here will hurt you. But I must ask you a question, and I need an honest answer." Taiho swallowed hard. "What question? Do you want to survive? Or do you want to fight?" The boy blinked in confusion. "Is there a difference?" Yura smiled slightly. "Here, yes. Survival is learning to live on this planet. Fighting is learning to take back what was stolen from us. Survival is staying hidden. Fighting is making the Dominion regret every person they ever threw away." Taiho looked at the fortress around him. He saw the walls, the weapons, the training grounds where beings of different species practiced combat together. He saw creatures that should have been dead, standing strong and confident. "I want to fight," he said. His voice was still shaky, but his eyes were steady. "I want them to pay for what they did to me, to all of us." Doan put a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Then welcome to the Forgotten, Taiho. Your training starts tomorrow." Over the next cycle, Taiho grew. He was not the strongest or the fastest, but he was determined. He fell down 100 times and got up 101. Dahong watched him closely, seeing a future leader in the making. One evening, Taiho found Doan alone on the observation tower. The human leader often came here to think, watching the stars and planning the next step. "Sir," Taiho said hesitantly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you really believe we can fight the Dominion?" "They have fleets of ships. They have millions of soldiers. They rule the galaxy." He gestured at the fortress below. "We have 200 people on a death planet. How can we possibly win?" Doan was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice calm and certain. "The Dominion rules because they control resources. They control fear. They control the assumption that resistance is futile. They want everyone to believe that fighting back is pointless, so nobody tries." He turned to face Taiho. "But they have never faced an enemy like us." "What do you mean?" "Every person the Dominion exiles to this planet was someone they could not control. Every death world they use as punishment is actually a training ground that makes the survivors stronger. They are creating the very thing they fear most." Dohan pointed at the stars. "Somewhere out there are people who hate the Dominion but do not know how to fight. There are systems that want to rebel but have no hope. We are going to give them that hope." Taiho struggled to understand. "But how? We are stuck on this planet." "Not forever," Doan said. "The Dominion sends supply ships sometimes to check their satellites and drop more exiles. Small ships, poorly armed. We have been watching their schedules, learning their patterns. When the time is right, we will take one of those ships. Then another. Then another." He looked back at the fortress, at the lights burning in every window, at the people who had risen from nothing. "We are not going to defeat the Dominion with brute force, Taiho. We are going to defeat them with fear. We are going to make them believe that we are everywhere, that every exile they create might be another soldier for our cause, that every death world they use might be another haven waiting to rise." Taiho felt something growing in his chest. Something warm, something powerful. "Hope. When do we start?" he asked. Doan smiled beneath the scars on his face. "We already have, young one. We have been preparing for 4 cycles. The Dominion just does not know it yet." He put his hand on Taiho's shoulder again. "Remember this moment. remember how small we seem right now. Because one day, you will tell this story to others. You will tell them how the forgotten began. And you will watch their faces when they realize that the impossible was always possible. Tai-Ho stood straighter. I will remember, sir. Good, Do-hun said. Now go get some rest. Tomorrow, your real training begins. Tai-Ho left the tower and walked toward the barracks. Behind him, Do-hun remained, watching the stars turn slowly overhead. The Dominion fleet would come eventually. Do-hun knew this. They would realize something was wrong on Vark 9. They would send soldiers to investigate. When that day came, the forgotten would be ready. High Arbiter Vaughn stared at the reports in front of him. His 16 eyes moved across the data, reading the same lines over and over, hoping they would change. They did not change. The surveillance drone sent to Vark 9 had been destroyed. All 12 of them. The supply ship that visited last month had vanished without sending a distress signal. And the exiles being dropped on the planet were no longer dying. They were disappearing. How is this possible? Vaughn demanded. His advisors stood in a nervous line before him, none willing to speak first. Vark 9 is a death world. Nothing survives there. This is established fact. One advisor finally found his courage. High Arbiter, the satellite footage from before we lost contact showed unusual activity, structures in the mountains, movement that appeared organized. We believe there may be survivors on the surface. Survivors? Vaughn's voice was sharp. How many? The advisor swallowed. Based on our last data, possibly over 200. The chamber fell silent. 200 survivors on a planet that should have killed everyone in days. It was not possible. It could not be possible, but Vaughn remembered something. He remembered a human standing in chains, smiling at his death sentence. He remembered eyes that held no fear. He remembered words that had seemed crazy at the time. I was hoping you would choose somewhere interesting. Send a military team, Vaughn ordered. 50 soldiers. Full equipment. I want that planet cleaned. The team landed on Vark 9 3 days later. They were the best the Dominion had. Experienced warriors with advanced weapons and armor designed to handle hostile environments. They expected to find frightened survivors hiding in caves, thought they found something very different. The attacks came from everywhere and nowhere. Arrows made from Omega beast bones punched through armor designed to stop energy weapons. Traps hidden in the ground swallowed soldiers whole. Creatures that should have been wild were somehow working with the enemy, herding Dominion troops into kill zones. The soldiers never saw their attackers clearly. Just shadows moving through toxic mist. Just the sound of something large breathing in the darkness. Just the screams of their companions being dragged away one by one. 3 days later, the Dominion lost contact with the team. Not one soldier returned. Not one distress signal was sent. 50 of the best warriors in the galaxy. Gone like they had never existed. Vaughn received the news in stunned silence. Then he did something he had not done in 50 years of ruling the council. He panicked. Assemble a war fleet, he commanded. 200 ships. 40,000 soldiers. We will burn that planet until nothing remains but ash. The fleet took 2 weeks to gather. It was the largest military force sent to a single target in a decade. When it finally arrived at Vark 9, the crews expected to see a dying world populated by desperate survivors. Instead, they found a fleet waiting for them, not a large fleet. Just a dozen ships, clearly captured Dominion vessels that had been modified and repaired. They floated in orbit around Vark 9, their weapons powered and ready. Standing on the hull of the lead ship, visible through external cameras, was a figure in Omega Beast armor. Kang Do-hun's voice broadcast across every Dominion frequency. Every ship in the fleet heard it. Every soldier listened. High Arbiter Vaughn, Do-hun said. We meet again, I want to thank you for everything you have given us over the years. The exiles you threw away became our soldiers. The death world you used as punishment became our home. The hatred you spread became our fuel. Vaughn's transparent skin flushed with anger. You are surrounded, human. You have 12 ships. I have 200. This is not a battle. This is mathematics. Doan laughed. It was the same laugh that had confused Vaughn 4 cycles ago in the council chamber. You still do not understand, do you? Numbers do not win wars. Will does. Training does. Having nothing left to lose does. He raised his hand, and the captured ships began to move. Not toward the Dominion fleet. Toward the planet. For 4 cycles, we have trained on the deadliest planet in your empire. Every one of my soldiers has killed creatures that your army cannot even imagine. Every one of them has survived conditions that would break your finest warriors. His voice grew cold. Do you really think your numbers frighten us? The battle began. It was not like any battle the Dominion had fought before. The Forgotten did not form battle lines. They did not follow standard tactics. They struck and vanished. They boarded enemy ships and fought in close quarters where their brutal training gave them every advantage. They used the planet's atmosphere as a weapon, luring Dominion ships into toxic clouds that damaged their systems. Yura led the boarding parties. She moved through Dominion corridors like a ghost, her team following close behind. They had spent cycles learning to fight in darkness, in poison, in pain. The clean metal hallways of a starship were nothing to them. SEOK commanded the ground forces, using the surface of Varak 9 itself as a trap. Dominion soldiers who landed found themselves in a nightmare. The planet's creatures attacked them. The ground betrayed them. The very air tried to kill them. And through it all, the Forgotten hunted them with patient, terrible skill. Taiho fought beside Dohan himself. The young man had grown into a warrior over the past cycle. His fear was gone, replaced by something harder. When a Dominion captain tried to surrender to him, Taiho remembered every person he had lost. Every friend who had died in the labor camps. Every innocent exile to die on forgotten worlds. He did not accept a surrender. The battle lasted 3 days. When it was over, the great Dominion fleet was broken. Ships drifted without power. Soldiers lay dead on a dozen decks. And High Arbiter Vaughn knelt in the ruins of his flagship, surrounded by warriors in Omega Beast armor. Dohan stood before him. He had removed his helmet. His face was scarred, weathered by 4 cycles on a death world. But his eyes were the same as they had always been. Calm, patient, unbreakable. What do you want? Vaughn whispered. All his pride was gone. All his power was gone. He was just a frightened creature looking at something he did not understand. Dohan considered the question for a long moment. Behind him, Yura, Seok, Taiho, and commanders from 40 different species stood in silence. They had all lost something to the Dominion. They all had reasons for revenge. I want the exiles returned to their homes, Dohan said finally. I want the Death Worlds declared free zones, protected from your empire. I want the Dominion to remember something it has forgotten. Vaughn looked up with his many eyes. Remember what? Dohan leaned close. His voice was quiet, but every being in the room heard it clearly. You tried to use death as a weapon against us. You thought you could throw away the people you could not control, and they would simply disappear. But humans do not fear death, Arbiter. We learned to carry it with us a long time ago. And every exile you created, every person you threw away, you turned into something that will never stop fighting. He straightened and addressed the room. His voice grew louder, carried by speakers to every Dominion ship still listening. The Forgotten are no longer forgotten. The Death Worlds are no longer graves. And the galaxy is no longer yours alone. From this day forward, every system knows that resistance is possible. Every exile knows that they have a home waiting for them. Every tyrant knows that there is a price for cruelty. He put his helmet back on. The skull of the Omega Beast covered his face, making him look like a demon from ancient stories. Tell your council, Vaughn. Tell everyone you meet. The human you tried to kill on Vark 9 is still alive. And he is not finished. He walked away, leaving the defeated Arbiter kneeling in the wreckage of his power. Outside, through the broken windows of the ship, the stars shone bright and endless. Somewhere out there, billions of beings looked up at the sky and wondered if change was possible. Wondered if the Dominion could be challenged. Wondered if hope still existed. Dohan looked at those stars and smiled. The Dominion had created a death world. They had meant it as a final punishment, a way to dispose of problems without getting their hands dirty. Instead, they had created something new, something powerful, something unstoppable. They had banished a human warrior to a death planet. He had thrived instead, and now the galaxy would never be the same.